Hey, Fringe listeners, exciting news alert. The Talent Talks podcast just hit the People Forward Network, and here's one of our favorite episodes. I love the energy and takeaways gained from this show. I hope you enjoy it so much that you follow the show. Talent Talks coming right up.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Talent Talks. I am excited to be here with my friend and guest again, returning guest, Beth Ridley. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you. I love coming here. I'll come back anytime. Once a week if you want me to.
Deal.
That's well, too much, right?
Maybe too much. No, I'm kidding. But you got such
But if
rich...
I live in your basement, it's easy. Then I just have to come upstairs.
Well, let's do it. I think you got rich enough content that we could probably hit something on this every single week.
I think so.
You need a show. You need a weekly show. Have you thought about that?
I'll work on it.
Just while you're not doing all the other explosive, busy stuff that's changing the world, let's have a weekly show. But seriously, a weekly show would be kind of cool idea on this topic. Cool. So. You are in a world that is changing and evolving and developing so fast. Yeah. And there's such hot topics in just the whole companies trying to figure out, how do I do a better job of diversity? How do I do a better job of creating an inclusive culture? You really helped me last time you were on. I said, how do I, as a business owner, as a small company business owner, I don't know how to. It feels like there's landmines. Like there's a gotcha around every corner, and it feels like that. I'm like, oh my god, screw this thing up. Yeah. And you encouraged me and said, just be curious. Yeah. And it's been really helpful for me, just being curious.
Just curious.
And you even just some phrases and terminology you gave on the last podcast. So any listeners, get on the last one, hear it, because good stuff around just how to even ask questions in a curious way that's not like, why this?
Intrusive,
why this?
Or offensive.
Yes. Exactly. Like, help me understand. I genuinely want to know.
Yeah, I'm curious to know.
I'm curious to know. And that was it, the curious to know. And I've used the phrase, and it's been really helpful. I'm like, it's so disarming, and it makes me feel even like not paranoid.
Right.
Which is, something that I think probably a lot of our listeners kind of trying to what happens when you don't know? Yeah. I'm curious to know.
And frankly, to be asked that, who doesn't want someone else to take an interest in them? Yeah. So it rarely goes poorly because somebody's like, oh, you're interested in me. Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
So since we last had you on the show, tell us some things that are going on in Beth's world.
So I've been actually attending a lot of conferences, on panels. To your point, how DEI and belonging is always evolving. Some of the new conversations that we're really focused on is the intersection between belonging and employee well-being, wellness, minimizing burnout, anxiety, which is a big deal at work because, employees are kind of stressed out. And when you have a culture of belonging where people feel more confident being who they are, they don't have to work so hard to fit in, or they're not afraid of speaking up, that does minimize stress and anxiety, because just sort of like those mind games that you play with yourself, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I fitting in okay? Like, what do people think about me? Requires a lot of effort and energy. Yeah. And if you can kind of minimize that a little bit at work, it helps to boost a sense of psychological safety and that people can thrive at work, which I think is really important. Yeah. So that's been a big part of the conversations I've been a part of recently.
Wow. That kind of springboards in my mind. Something happened recently. We have a company-wide, we call it the huddle, which happens every Friday morning. The whole company's on there. You've actually, we have you on a retainer.
Those are so fun. They're
we have
great
a retainer
fun.
to help us with those, which I will talk about in a bit. But one of the team members they were giving a shout out to some other people, which we do regularly, and they just said it was one of the team leaders and a director in the company. They said, I just want to shout out to my team. I was having a bit of a meltdown at home. And I was going into a meeting. It was a client meeting. I was supposed to be showing up to lead this thing. And I pinged some people who are directly reporting into this person. And they said, I'm having a meltdown. And just stress, personal things that are going on, the combination of everything. I'm not ready to show up to this meeting. Can you cover for me? And they told this story in front of the whole company. Yeah. And I was, it was almost like a choke up moment. I'm so glad they felt comfortable to do that with their team and their direct reports. Correct. And then to risk humiliation and say it in front of the whole company.
Right.
You know, like I'm so thankful for that. And I was thinking, what led to that point of like well-being, kind of the inclusion, that belonging? Like, how do we get here? Because I don't think we've always been there. And yeah, I just,
we haven't. I mean, I think that's such a great example of taking the risk to be a little bit vulnerable, because I can assure you, if one person is feeling like they had a rough morning, they're not ready to show up, everybody's been there.
Yeah.
But you put this mask on, right?
Yeah.
You feel like, oh my God, I always have to like be on at work. And part of a culture of belonging is that people feel a sense of forgiveness. Like we extend grace to ourselves and others, and you're allowed to have a bad day without it being held against you. And that's what I hear a lot from some of the clients that I work with. They're like, a big benefit that they were seeing from their work of investing in culture and a culture of inclusion is that, you know, they can speak up and talk about what they're struggling with at work, maybe something that they don't understand, actually something that didn't go well, because not everything goes well, and they're not afraid it's going to be held against them.
Yes.
And that's how you really promote growth and learning, because people have to be able to speak up and talk about what's, you know, not going so great for them as well as what is going well for them. So I think it's just sort of a natural evolution of this work.
Yeah.
It's a benefit of investing in DEI. People might start by investing in DEI by saying, we want to make this a better place to work for our women or people of color who are not well represented. Yeah. But the spillover effect it impacts everything in a positive way, because we all have some dimension of diversity that we feel may be holding us back. Yeah. And it could be our communication style, introvert, extrovert. You know, we come from a different professional background, you know, different experience. And, you know, when you create an environment where it's okay to speak up, you can speak up about everything.
Yeah.
And so I think your example happening in your culture is a direct effect of the investment that you've been making in DEI and belonging all these years.
Well, I want to thank you, and I want to say thank you for that, because the investment you've made in us over this journey, I think it's released people to be themselves even more.
Yeah.
But partly because we've said, hey, we're bringing in a pro and an expert to help us on this journey. And even the fact that you're there teaching and training and equipping our team, they believe that it's important, even more than me going, hey, we're on a journey. And like, okay, now the investment and you teaching and educating, it's been really, really helpful. And I think that was a indirect or direct impact of that somebody would say, oh, I feel I can be me, 100%. Even in my rubbish day that I'm having. And, you know, kids are going crazy or whatever it is. And it's kind of, I can't cope right now, you know.
Yeah.
And I've shown up to these meetings. I literally in the last couple of years, I've had some pretty traumatic things in my life, and I remember kind of showing up to those huddles and like doing this.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, I wish I could have said, or maybe I could have, but at that point, I just didn't feel safe. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was too vulnerable in myself to say, I can't do it today, you know, which I think is really hard as a leader, because you're expected to show up all the time and be on and inspire and lead and be strong.
It's really hard as a leader. Leaders are human too. And I like to say, you know, you're with belonging, you're really cultivating a workplace family. When most people say, where do they feel the greatest sense of belonging? It's at home, because you can be yourself. People are forgiving. They love you anyway. Yeah. And at work, why can't we create some of that as well? And the benefit of, you know, you guys are a nice size organization where you can go through this learning journey together. And I know a lot of your clients are just maybe smaller, mid-sized companies. I think that's such an asset, because you can all, like you said, once a month, you have an all-team huddle. Yeah. And so you're the size that you can do that, and you have like that shared experience of how we're investing in this together. Harder to do the bigger you get, but I see some of the biggest gains of doing exactly what you're doing. Once a month, carving out time. And it doesn't have to be hard-hitting. We're talking about culture, but something that I think reflects your cultural values and the experience of coming together, where people start to feel a little bit safer, a little bit safer, a little bit safer. And then next thing you know, you've created this workplace family. You can kind of be who you are, and not everybody's going to be on every day, and that's okay.
Yeah. I like the word, I like the word workplace family. Because every time people describe their culture, they go, we're like a family. I'm like, don't say that. Some people's families are, people don't want to be around their family.
Not a dysfunctional, a functional workplace family.
But functional workplace family. I like that, tying it all together. It's once a week we have a huddle, by the way.
Oh, once a week.
Yeah, we only invite you every now and again.
Well, now I feel offended. Well, okay, so the more you do, the faster you make gains.
Totally.
So I didn't realize it was once a week. Wow, that's actually a commitment.
Every single week since the beginning we started. That's the awesome. Day after Thanksgiving we don't do, and day after whatever. There's a couple of 2 or 3 times a year we miss it, but we're pretty very regimented.
Can I tell you another benefit of that, and that you may not even know?
Please.
So you're a pretty fast growing company, right?
Yeah.
You're always bringing in a lot of new people. I think that's like a perfect onboarding strategy, or part of the onboarding strategy, because guess what? Your new employees immediately have access to everybody. They immediately get sort of woven in to the culture, as opposed to having to network on their own or piecemeal it together. Yes. It's hodgepodgey. But if they're already sort of like stepping into something, what a great way so that they can feel connected to the bigger whole, like right away. It's seamless.
Totally.
And so I've seen that work as like a really great part of an ongoing onboarding strategy.
It's been really important to us for those reasons. And even some people have said, why do you have brand new people their very first week? We have them speak in front of the whole company.
Oh.
Yeah.
About what?
There's not like a speech. We just say, who are you? Where are you from? How did you end up here? Mm-hmm. Like, did somebody introduce you, refer you, or whatever? Yeah. How did you hear about us? And why did you join us? Right? Why did you choose here? And it's been, I found it. We have a lot of extroverted people.
Yeah.
Okay. Although intimidating, we prepare them for it. You're going to be doing this thing. And it's 20 seconds. But it's for people, we rally around that person, it's great to have you here. And people feel really encouraged because they feel seen, known, loved, and appreciated. Yeah. And it's been really helpful for everybody else to get to know them. But one of the other things is having them share why they came. The freshness and the excitedness of that is infectious.
It's infectious, right?
With people who've been here 5 years and we're going... Do I still want to stay here? Should I leave? Is my time up? We always talk about leaving with dignity. It's fine to ring the bell and get off the bus. We're not all going to humiliate you. Why are you leaving? You're it's just your time. Your stops here. Yeah. But we've had people who've been like, gosh, I remember that feeling, and I want to get that refreshed again. And they, it's quite infectious. All right. So I was in a situation this week, and I thought to myself, I'm like, I got some questions here. Who do I ask? And I'm always like, I'm learning to be curious, but I'm just trying to figure these things out. And I didn't want to open my mouth in front of this group of people. I'm like, I'll talk to Beth about it. I'll talk about it live on a podcast. Yeah.
I'm on the edge of my chair. What's going on?
No, this will be, more raw and exposing of me. But so here's what the situation was. I heard somebody say, okay, we're looking to hire somebody. It was a senior level role. And they said, okay, we'll need to hire somebody in this critical seat. And went through all of the performance objectives, et cetera. We said, great, we're going to go and find the most qualified and the greatest person. And they said, one last thing. This is working with our customers and our clients directly. Currently, we have a team of it's getting embarrassing. We show up to these pitch meetings and we got 5 white males. And so we would like you to find somebody who's diverse. And we said, okay. And our standard response is, hey, we're going to find the most qualified person for the role, Yep. And so then I started thinking about it in my mind. I'm like, okay, I know this is really, really common. Everybody's like, how do we grow in this? Well, you can't grow diversity from within.
Right.
It's you've got to do a better job of hiring, etc.
Yeah.
And you've helped us greatly in this area of the dimensions of diversity versus some of the more obvious ones. So my question is this. The reason they were wanting to hire a diverse candidate is because the person who they would be hiring would be in rooms with people that they were trying to match. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So if okay, they're going to be interacting with these people. We want more diversity so that there's a match. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. You want to recruit people that look like the people who are doing the recruiting,
right? And I'm like, okay, so I'm like, yeah, this is really interesting. But isn't that the opposite of now we're we're actually trying to find people who match rather than it was just one of these things where it hit me. I'm like, is this weird? Am I going crazy? What is the end game if we keep doing this? And we then actually try to become more segregated so that people feel more comfortable with people they're like, which is the opposite of diversity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's sort of the reality of the situation that, we do tend to focus on like the external dimensions of diversity, and they actually do matter.
Yeah.
I think representation does matter, especially before they get to know someone. They have nothing else to go by other than to think like, okay, at least if I see people that look like me, it's an environment where I too could be accepted and successful. So there definitely is an element to that to not be overlooked.
Yeah.
But I also think that, you finding talent that looks different and talented people are not mutually exclusive. And then you also want to dig a little bit deeper in terms of like other types of diversity that help to add to the decision making and the thoughtfulness and everything like that. So I think that, no one is just one dimensional and limited to the package that they come in.
Yeah.
But I think it's really possible, and it may take a little bit more time to find those candidates of someone who helps you project the representation that you want, but also is bringing in, interesting perspectives and is highly qualified for the job.
Yeah. Okay. That's helpful. That's really helpful. I mean, it's not a major question I had, but I was thinking, I wonder how does this all work if we get to this point where we're like, oh my, and I don't know if there are any company out there that's like, we're perfect in this whole belonging and inclusion and diversity and equity. I'm like, we're amazing. Like, does one exist? Are we there? Are we ever going to be there?
Yeah. Well, it's
what
always,
is it, what's that desired future, right? Like,
it's always evolving. And I guess what I think is important to do is just to have the honest and specific conversation, because a lot of times we just say diverse talent and it's like a catch-all for what? I don't know. But you really do have to sit down and be honest of what you're talking about. I will say still a lot of organizations are focusing on women, people of color, and perhaps LGBTQ plus. But it's specifically women and people of color because it's like the one thing that you can measure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so people like to be able to quantify. So I say start there.
Yeah.
There is more work to be done in those categories. Sure. And it's the same discipline to recruit, onboard, create an inclusive culture for those dimensions of diversity. It's actually the same discipline. And once you kind of practice that, you'd be surprised of how quickly you can scale it to other dimensions of diversity that matter as well.
It matters. Yes. Okay. Well, I could say thank you so much to you, but thank you for helping us grow in this journey from 5 years back or whatever. And we're like,
wow, has it been 5 years?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I probably, since I started interacting with you, and not this to say that you weren't doing in this space before we met. I have a question for you. May I ask?
Yeah, go for it.
Because a lot of people ask this question. What is an example of better because of this investment? I think we already started out with one, like on your huddles, people are being a little bit more honest about how they're showing up. And is there anything else? Like, what can you say is different? Like an example of how the culture has changed for the better because of your investment.
Yeah, I think probably. Well, one of the areas would be like you mentioned you're a fast growing company or a high growth organization. So we like hiring people who are driven, a little bit competitive, a little bit entrepreneurial, blah, blah, and like charge. But for me to actually slow down and go, okay, that doesn't always look the same. Like those characteristics can be in here, but they don't look the same on the outside, or they don't show up in the same way. So actually slow down and be like, they don't seem like passionate. Well, passion doesn't look like I'm not the definition of passionate because I'm loud and gregarious and energetic. Yeah. But when somebody's like, okay, they're clear on where they're trying to get to in their goal. And they have a drive to do it, or a discipline, and more methodical, thoughtful. But they're disciplined and they're going to come through because they're driven by the goal. And I'm passionate about that, but it looks different. And so it's, I think one of those things that you helped me to do is actually slow down a little bit, be a little bit more curious, and think about it in a slower way. I'm a fast processor. And as my wife would say, like, you jump to conclusions so fast. You finish people's sentences. Well, I think it's probably just in my own house. I think I'm better at it in the public space. But those who are closest to me, I'm like, yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, move on. But actually slowing down to appreciate and value the different ways, like, was it neurodivergent? Like,
neurodiversity.
Neurodiversity.
Different ways people process information.
So I'm like, oh, wow. And actually valuing and honoring that and slowing down a little bit. And inviting people who think differently. I realized as well, if I go back 5 years, our senior leadership team was all people who could go fast, you know, and they're not process driven naturally.
Yeah.
They were very people. I'm like, yeah, I like being around you. I like being around you. Like, we're on the same page. And it's not that I wanted we changed it and said, let's hire people or bring people onto the leadership team who are not like, or I don't like,
right,
but may not think the same way, and actually really valuing. And so I've started bringing closer to me personally, people who think differently, process differently, and same core values characteristically, but who just approach things differently and go, you make me better,
right,
and hopefully I can make you better.
Yeah,
and our collaboration together. So
yeah,
that's one
great.
part.
And especially if you're starting that on the leadership team, and then because I think your employees will see that there's many ways to be an effective leader. There's not one way.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if employees look up and they're like, oh, everybody's like this, then they sort of, take themselves out of the game. Like, I won't fit in. Why should I bother?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, more people can aspire, and you want to sort of groom as much eager people to be leadership as possible. So you have a large bench to kind of pull from. And, we are who we are. I'm sort of like you, like, I don't want to, it's so funny. And like you, I'm probably more like that at home than I am in public. But my husband literally got mad at me yesterday because I asked him a question. He's an attorney. He's the opposite of me. Very methodical, very thoughtful, which is really helpful, but frustrating for me. So I asked him a question. I literally said, do your thinking on your own and just come to me with the answer. Like, don't do your thinking out loud in front of me because I don't have patience for that. He got mad. Rightly so. But literally, sometimes, like, I don't want to hear all that.
Yeah.
Do your thinking. I just want the answer. I don't want the backstory. I just want the answer. Now, imagine if you had a leadership team wired just like that. I'd be afraid for the company. Afraid.
Right. And I mean, it's like oh my gosh, this will be the same conversation I had with my wife, Tracy, you just met, I'd be like, what's the point of your story? Like, I don't really understand. Can you tell me at the beginning why I need to listen to this story? I'm not that
you
much
don't even want to listen.
I'm not that rude. We've been married for 20 years.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'm thinking it. I'm like,
Yes.
Why am I listening to this? Is there a point to the end of this? Am I supposed to, are you going to be asking me, is there a test at the end?
Yeah.
And the test is, do you need my way in, or are you just telling me a story?
Yes.
And then I just be present, And so I'm trying to train my brain to be present.
Yes.
Actually, I had a conversation with one of our team this week about the science, like the science of scrolling, all of the technology. There's so much research gone in there about the addiction. There is no end. You can't. You don't finish Instagram, right?
Right.
You don't finish YouTube. Or you don't finish. They're just unlimited, and so it's really hard for a lot of people, and they're wired from an early age to scroll.
Yeah.
And there's science into that. You'll never, unless you're incredibly disciplined.
Yes.
You won't end. And then people, go 1 o'clock in the morning and they're still scrolling. What are you looking for? Nothing. I'm just, but we wire our brains in such short-term everything. We want sound bites for everything. But it's really hard to show somebody presence in their challenge, in their pain, even if they're having a hard time at work. In a workplace environment, sometimes I'm having a hard time. Like, can you get to the point and let's fix it? Like, actually, I just want you to hear the journey of me getting to this point, because so-and-so said this to me, and then this person said to me, and then this client, and then this, and it's just there's this whirlwind that's building towards us. Can you hurry up?
Yeah.
Like, is it solved or not solved? Because we haven't got time for this right now,
Well, and I think that this is, we have sort of a very Western culture, obviously, in the United States, where we are doers and problem solvers.
Yeah.
We prioritize productivity. We want to get it done. We want to fix.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be a little bit self-aware around that. A lot of times that's not what people want. They don't want us to solve a problem. They want us just to listen. They want to just sort of be heard. And this is where maybe investing in like inclusive leadership competency may feel counterintuitive, because a lot of it is asking and listening as opposed to solving. You don't even have to jump in and say anything. Just listen and absorb. And sometimes that's the best thing you can do to create that culture of belonging.
Yeah.
Someone feel valued, heard, listened. They're not looking to you to solve their problem necessarily.
Right.
They just want to feel like you are thinking that they're important enough that you're willing to invest some time.
Yes.
To hear them. It is counterintuitive. It's also easier if we think about it. Like, we don't always have to fix.
Right.
But
that's so hard. Well, you've already admitted that's hard for your wiring of your brain, and it's certainly hard for mine.
It is hard.
Of like going, okay, I'm just going to be present.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be, So
it's
I'm
an
training
evolution
myself.
of leadership. I think the next generation, these Gen Zers, that's the other thing I've been on panels talking about a lot, like Gen Zers and the next generation and what are they looking for in a workplace culture. And I will tell you, so I've got 3 Gen Zers at home of my own. And my own son, like, the apple didn't fall far from the tree. He's a real go-getter. He's super involved in everything. And I was shocked when he came to me one day. He goes, do you have strategies for burnout? The fact that that's a word that they can actually use, that was never in my lexicon when I was his age. It was Friday. Like, you know what I mean? It was like any other day. But they're using these words. And so I think that, eventually they're valuing things in terms of like, how do I protect my emotional well-being? Like, these are actually things that they're starting to talk about. And so I think naturally what it means to be an effective leader is going to evolve as well. It's not push people to the edge of exhaustion. It's part of getting the most out of my talent is modeling what it means to slow down and be present. Just like all those things that you're focusing on, that you're working on.
Oh, wow. That brings up so many questions. Like, I'm like, I'm going into solve already. I'm like, well, why are they burned out? And then I'm like, is it social media in comparison? Like, there's so much in there. Like, it's exhausting because you can never live up to whatever. Like, you're never going to make it because you're comparing yourself to everybody else out there.
I think
versus
it's a lot
being present in your little tiny cul-de-sac in your little neighborhood. How it was, 50 years ago.
Social media doesn't social media is a blessing and a curse. It can help people feel more connected if they're feeling isolated. I also think, what I see in my own kids is they groom kids to be really good at something at such an early age. So have you noticed sports now are all year long? It used to be you could do multiple sports. You could do basketball and soccer and track and baseball, have a variety. With that variety, you're kind of a generalist. You enjoy everything, but you're not really good at anything. Now, I've noticed with my own kids, they're trying to groom kids to be like really, really good at a young age. Like, you're peaking as an athlete at like 12, and you are, now soccer is all year long because there's indoor soccer. My daughter runs track. It's all year long, not just spring.
Right.
Because there's an indoor track season, there's a fall season, a spring season, a summer season. And the kids are getting good because they're specializing. But, that's work. And there's no more like, it's almost like, your best years are your teenage years.
Yeah.
And it's like everybody's like driving to be excellent.
Yes.
At such a young age.
So
I think it's social media, and it's just sort of, again, like our cultural orientation is do, drive.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different in other countries, Asia and Africa, the Caribbean, a little bit more natural to feel, just be in the moment.
Yeah.
We're a particular, and there's no good or bad. It's just how we're wired here. I just think that we have to be cautious.
If you could, you're bringing this up because I know you've traveled a bit and lived in other cultures and countries. If you could take a little bit of someone else's, another culture that you think, that would be so great here. Yeah. And when I say here, wherever here is for you, if it's your neighborhood, if it's your, where you live in your state, or like, what's an attribute that you think?
That's an easy one. And I'll answer I just came back from Italy.
Okay.
And the siesta and these super long lunches. And and super long meals where people are spending time with one another for hours over food, just talking, lingering, so nice, like investing in relationships. Yeah. So nice. I'd like to maybe bring a little bit of that here.
What do you think is the kind of the enemy of that in our culture? Like what causes us to not do that?
achievement oriented productivity. It's really hard for us to feel like we're worth anything if we're not like doing.
Yeah.
You know, so I used to, like, a couple years ago, had this blog called Do Nothing is the New, I think, like, what did I call it? Do Nothing is like the new Brussels sprouts or something like that. Because, you know, like how Brussels sprouts is getting like a major comeback. Yeah. It used to be like a gross vegetable. And now people are like, it's amazing. So something like that, like we have
with
to like
bacon in it.
Yeah, exactly. We have to like
some balsamic.
We have to make do nothing seem really cool again, as opposed to you're a loser. You know what I mean? Because like whenever you ask somebody, oh, how you doing? Oh, so busy. And it's like, if you don't say that, like, what are you doing? Nobody says, I read a book from cover to cover. You're like, you have nothing going on in your life.
Seriously.
So I don't know. I just think, but there is something about, I mean, our economy and you know what I mean? So it's not bad. I think we just have to be self-aware of, you know, when it can get bad and to, you know, make more adjustments.
Well, it seems like it's a you make a big announcement when you're going off social. I am going off social. I'll be going off the next 3 months because I take care of my.
I am off social.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
No. So talk about this. Okay.
I am a 100.
Because it's a cool thing to do.
Oh, is it the trend? But I wouldn't know because I'm not on social.
I'm kidding.
I don't know what's happening. I
think just that sense of like, I'm going to protect. I mean, what you're saying, I think there is a grouping of people that would say, yeah, I'm gonna take this seriously, my mental health, my well-being, and whatever it is, you know, or sucking up my life. I mean, I made a commitment just this week, no scrolling. Like, you can still send me a message, but I'm not gonna scroll. Like, I'm
not on. The only thing I'm on is LinkedIn, and I post and I respond to posts, and so I'm probably on it maybe 5 minutes, 3 days a week.
Sure,
that's it. And I got off it because, one, it was bad for my self-esteem. I would wake up in the morning and see all this like fabulous stuff, and I would compare myself like, why am I not doing that? How come my business doesn't look like that? And I would just start the day off at a deficit.
Yeah.
2, it was a time suck. And 3, I felt this pressure no matter what I was doing. Like, I could be at a track meet with my daughter, and I felt like, oh my God, I have to post it and then turn it into something profound. And then I got to the point where I wasn't enjoying being in the moment. So and it was actually one fell swoop, and it was quite easy for me. It was like one day.
Yeah.
And this was probably 5 or 6 years ago. I just cut everything off except for LinkedIn, like I said.
Yeah.
But I don't have to worry about capturing the moment, posting the moment. I don't miss anything. The one thing though, like, I guess I do miss a little bit is sometimes it is a good way to keep up with what's going on in your friend's life in important ways.
Yeah.
Like if a parent had passed away, I ran into a friend of mine. I didn't know she had posted on Facebook. I wasn't on Facebook, so I didn't know. And so it's kind of like those things. Sometimes I don't, you know what I mean? So that might be the only thing that I miss, but everything else, I don't feel like I'm suffering at all.
Wow. And so give us some of the benefits of not doing this. Because, I mean, this comes into, again, health and well-being. And we've touched on a few things here. You're in a healthy spot.
More time, because I'm not scrolling. In the moment, I'm not this pressure to, oh my God, I have to take a picture and then post.
Yep.
I don't start out the day feeling bad about myself because I'm not comparing myself to other people. Mm-hmm. So I think those are like the three benefits.
Do you? I mean, does this show up in your work that you do in consulting and training and teaching people in the whole journey of belonging? I mean, one aspect of it. Do you see any kind of other benefits that you would actually speak on this of, hey, this is how you can help? I don't know. Is there or not really?
That's a good question. Like being off social media and how it relates to belonging. I haven't really thought about it. I guess I should think about it. I haven't really woven it into my consulting or my business, so I haven't quite made that connection.
I don't know if there is a connection. I'm just thinking about how I can, to your point, where it's easy to hit a like button or a sad face when somebody's passed away. You're like, oh, as if that's connect.
Right.
As if that's empathy.
Right.
Like, I gave you a like.
Yeah.
You know, like, I gave you a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that enough? Like, if that was my relationship with my wife, I'd be like, babe, you want a date night? You want a date night, but I gave you 7 likes. I gave a smiley face and I gave you a thumbs up. You're like, she'd be like, what?
Yeah.
What kind of relationship is this? But there is a false sense of connection. of depth.
Yeah.
There's a false sense of belonging when there are likes and clicks and things like that, versus me sitting down and going, we just had this somebody today on our company huddle, a single parent. I'm like, they've not been on. I've not seen any comments in the chat from them, and they came back. I'm here. I'm just not feeling well today. And I'm like, so sort of save messaging, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, is there anything we can do for you? And then I said, soup DoorDashed, like we're a 100% remote company. And I'm like, oh, quick, I haven't got time today to do this.
Right.
Can somebody arrange this? Like, can we get soup there and
nice.
something to
What
communicate care? But it would be easy if that was posted on social to kind of,
right.
Thoughts with you, it's not real connection versus, I don't know.
Back to kind of like the comparison with Italy, even our relationships seem very productive and for a purpose and maybe more transactional than what I experienced, in Italy, granted on vacation. But, I do think that one thing is very clear, 100% clear. And I think it became more clear coming out of the pandemic. People want and need that sense of belonging in all aspects of their life. The workplace is no different.
Yeah.
And so people want to be gathering in person. Retreats are off the charts now. Your virtual gatherings, and it doesn't matter if it's in person or virtual, they want to be together. Yeah. You're seeing that with your weekly huddles that are going over super well. And, the truth of the matter is those things cement relationships, positive, warm relationships, which is the number one source of joy in life. Warm, positive relationships. And when we don't make time for that at work, we can be super productive, but transactional doesn't always feel good, and it's not like the staying power. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's slowing down a little bit to make time for those relationships that people, you hear it all the time. People don't leave their job, they leave their people. Or they don't leave the job, they leave their boss.
Yeah.
If you have warm relationships, or if you ask somebody, what do you miss most about the job you left? It's always the people.
Yes.
So it's, I think we're gradually learning a little bit. I think the United States, we're hard-headed.
Yeah.
We're thick-headed people. So it's eventually seeping in. It really is about the relationships. And I think we can do a better job of balancing both. Yeah. We'll just get more out of people if we are investing in those relationships in a meaningful way that goes beyond, likes on Instagram. That's sort of like the difference between tolerating people and a culture of tolerance. It's not bad, but your clients and others are going for a great culture, a differentiator culture, a culture that people say, I want to come here because of the culture. I'm staying because of the culture. Yeah. And it means you got to do a little bit more than just, a like. Yes. You have to do your weekly huddles. That's an investment, Jonathan. Actually, that's a huge investment. Yeah. So even someone like you who's go, do, you're investing in that. And I think you continue to do it because you're seeing the benefits of it.
Yeah, I do think, it's something that's been really musing on me recently. Musing on me? I don't know. I've been musing about?
Could be.
I was mused. I was amused. I've been pondering.
There you go.
This whole thing of transactional, and everything that's transactional seems to be getting automated, which has been over the years, but very much so with kind of like this new wave of AI. And it sounds really great in so many ways. I'm like, great efficiency. Have a robot do that. Have AI do that. Have this do that. Like, that's amazing. We could eliminate half our workforce. I hear clients saying this, and I'm like, whoa, But what remains, if you automate everything that can be automated, you are left with the relational stuff.
Yes,
and
I
so
was actually just thinking the same thing.
We have to be really great at this.
I was actually just thinking the same thing. I was like, AI can be scary, but it's our opportunity to make it better. And so I was thinking, just as you said that, automate the mundane stuff, and then it makes more time for the relationships.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, my mom's of a generation where they didn't have dishwashers. And when they got dishwashers, it automated a task that then freed parents up to hopefully spend more time with their kids, right? So in some regards, it is freeing it up. Then we just have to decide, what are we going to do with that discretionary time? Do we just get rid of people? Or do we retain people, but make more time for those relationships? So finally, maybe we can get a little bit more balance between our drive for productivity and an investment in the one thing that we know makes us feel like we're thriving, which is warm, positive relationships with other people.
I love that, the warm, positive relationships. And I think the training needs to happen around this, especially for the generation come through that's grown up with behind a screen.
Yeah.
Because the clicks and likes and, comments, in many ways, I would argue, like, yes, there's connection there, but is it really genuine, authentic relationship where you can sit and have a meal together? The things that you're talking about with Italy culture, or Italian culture, coming, to actually sit and spend time having a meal together versus, I mean, you probably go out of restaurants and you look at the tables and you see people.
I know.
Put your bloody phone away.
I tell my kids they have to keep the phones in the car.
Like, it's just because we're going to be present together and we're going to actually have a conversation. But I think there will be some training that's required for face-to-face,
right,
interpersonal, long, present communication of genuine care.
So I think, our Gen Z, back to our Gen Zers, they're not getting as much practice in that. But I will tell you one thing that I think they do really well, more than my generation, I'm Gen X, is they, again, like anyways, I feel like my work experience was very much, focused on like the external package that people come in, right? Like putting people in boxes. Yeah. I see, at least from my kids, they're super fluid and they're more like they appreciate the intersectionality of what makes someone who they are. Yeah. They're not so focused on you're this, you're that, the other. I noticed that they don't even really talk about stuff like that. They just are. You know what I mean? And sometimes I fall in the trap of getting my kids to like label, like, who are the jocks? Who are the, the nerds at school? And they're just kind of like, I don't know. And you know what I mean? They're just more describing people. Yeah. They seem to be a little bit more comfortable that there's a lot of makes what someone is unique, right?
Okay,
it's not any one thing. I think that's really healthy.
That's good, yeah.
And I think that's going to help mature back to that conversation of like, can we just hire people that look a certain way? I think they're naturally inclined to sort of be like, well, it's a whole person and they're not just one type, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
I do notice they're just a little bit more open and fluid to how people show up.
Well, that's hopeful as well, that there's a generation coming through that kind of...
Generally speaking, yeah.
I think that authenticity in relationships versus superficial kind of clicks and likes, I still think there's a big opportunity. I think there will be an opportunity there. Cross-generationally, how to interact, how to be really present and not kind of hidden behind a screen, and just like, hey, can I sit with you in that pain that you're talking about? I want to feel that empathetically versus like, oh great, I understand that that's your thing. Like cool, thumbs up, good.
You just take a day off. Just turn your video camera off.
Can I just give you an emoji right now? Like, no, we're human beings. Like.
Actually, now that I think about it, so I do have a client where we are doing that kind of training. And what's interesting is so they brought me in as the DEI and belonging expert. Yep. They also brought in someone who's a positive psychology expert. And they said, we want the two of you to teach us how to have crucial conversations. And so it's partly crucial conversations around differences, but creating a sense of psychological safety. So we're partnering on that. And a lot of the best practices that I would put into play are the same as what my partner from a positive psychology lens is. And it really is about being curious, listening, and then seeking to understand. She has different language for it, but it really is. So we are training that in the corporate environment of really how to, do a better job of asking, listening, and then monitoring, like when you are starting to get emotional because of somebody's response, or you know what I mean? Like to recognize that, be self-aware, and then seek to understand, even when maybe it's making you uncomfortable or you disagree. So I do think that there is, again, sort of like, how do we create an environment that minimizes stress, burnout, fosters more those positive, warm relationships, and we can only get there through communication and language. So how do we do that?
Yeah. I just think it'd be great to normalize just making noises like that when you feel uncomfortable. It's like,
That is diversity too. People who make different noises at work. So
there you go. So it's just outbursts of disapproval.
Yes, outbursts.
Like what?
Yes. Some people are outburst people.
Sorry.
Other people hold it in.
I just hated what you said, and I just wanted to give a live emoji for that. No, it's one of those. we've been around this whole topic of connection and trying to train people on connection. Like, how do we systematize this? How do we train people on it? Yeah. So we've been talking a lot about it, but I find that fascinating with regards to bringing positive psychology and it's the investment in people skills.
Yeah,
that's right. That's what it is. Just like, we're going to invest in our team so they can be better people
leaders.
Like, they can be better employees, better people leaders, better client engagement, interacting with your customers. Like, we are in a very, very diverse world, which has become massively connected by technology and Zoom and all this kind of stuff, where it's like there are certain cultures which are a lot less diverse, right, in the world.
Oh yeah.
Like, so. Mm-hmm. But we're in a massive melting pot, and we're trying to think, how does this all work together with belonging and working effectively?
Yes.
And so training and investing people. I just read Vistage, the CEO peer advisory group, that put out one of the biggest investments that CEOs and executives are making this year in 2023 are around learning and development and training. They're just taking this opportunity to train more, and especially around people skills. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I love what you're doing. And even just recently, also, we have you on a retainer at Titus to invest in our teams and our leaders so we can grow in this journey. I love the resources that you have on Ridley Consulting. Where is it?
Ridley Resources.
Ridley Resources.
Yeah, RidleyResources.com.
But just even like the learning and the training and the visual walkthroughs of stuff and these classes and the video, it's been really, really helpful for me. It's not just like read this or sit in this webinar or something like that. It's very interactive. But put it into
practice right away.
Yeah.
And you're right. It really, I always thought DEI and belonging, it is leadership skills, because you're right. A leader is bringing out the best in everybody. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times, and I think we're evolving, right? I think the old style of leadership was, technical skills. Yep. You're a subject matter expert, or you've just been in the role long enough. Mm-hmm. And those leaders still exist, but I don't think that they're too terribly successful, because we are naturally bringing in so much diverse talent from across the board, whether it's, race, ethnicity, gender, but also just educational background, prior careers. People have to broaden that net to get the talent to support the growth of the organization. So you have to be that person who can sort of bridge, be flexible in order to bring out the best in everybody. So it is, I think, just a resurgence of people leadership. And it's not a nice to have. It's not a soft skill. It's not, when we have time. Yeah. It's starting to elevate as the most important thing, because, your human capital, your human talent, your human resources is your most expensive and most valued. Yeah. And we're humans first. Totally. You know what I mean? Until we all get outsourced by AI, we are in fact humans. And so I think it's just I think DEI is a tool in your leadership toolkit. It's not the only one. Right. But it's a really important and effective one, and easy to apply one if done right. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Well, if you could sit, whether it be, you mentioned being on a panel, if you could be on a panel with somebody, who's somebody you really look up to? Like, oh my gosh, I'm on a panel with this person. Or you get to work with them in some way, shape, or form. Like, who would that be? Oh gosh, that's a really good question. Can I think about that for a minute? Yeah, I love that you don't feel put on the spot. Like, you're like, I'm going to think about it. I really do want to think about it. I'd be like, Yeah, no, if I did that and I would say something kind of crazy, but I want to give that some actual thoughts. It's a really good question. Thoughtful question deserves a thoughtful response. Well, that's good. All right. What's a great question that somebody has asked you when you're meeting with companies? You think that is a really good question that I want to sort of unpack more with other companies as well. Has anyone not stumped you, but great questions that have come from companies that you're working with? You're like, that is a challenging one. Mm-hmm. That's another one. I'm giving you another question. You're going to say, can I think about that? Yeah, let's table that. And do I have a notepad here? I can just write down all the really thoughtful questions. We'll edit all that out anyway. I'm trying to think like a stumper. Well, okay, so here's one that came up recently with a client. Actually, this does happen a lot. And I have to sort of talk through it with clients. Most clients that hire me, they already have a really good culture, right? Yeah. I mean, they're already inclined to be thinking about DEI, investing in the culture. So it's not a stretch, that you're starting from a good base.
Right.
But to their credit, they want to go, like I said, from good to great, great to best in class.
Yes.
If they have a messed up culture, they're generally not hiring me. They're probably hiring an attorney.
Yep.
So a lot of times they'll do like a cultural belonging survey and the results come back favorable.
Yeah.
And so then they're kind of like, oh, but how do we sell that we need to continue to invest in this? Because it already looks like we're doing a really good job.
Yep.
So I think that's something that I get asked often. My response is, again, you just took a snapshot, a point in time, results came back great. There's always something to work on.
Yeah.
And you didn't get here by chance, so you have to continue to invest in it. And it's going to be those areas where you could do a little bit better. That's going to require you to go from good to great, great to best in class. Good for you in the sense that it may not be a huge investment or a huge lift.
Yeah.
So that's something that I get often. People are kind of stumped at, but we're good.
Yes.
Why do we need to do more?
Yeah.
So that's a response to one of those questions you asked.
Yeah. And what's something that you're looking forward to in the future as far as really consulting, as you're growing? You're a mover, shaker, visionary, change the world person.
So one of the things I'm really excited about, and so I launched this Inclusive Leaders Roundtable. I did it in response to my clients.
Yeah.
The main thing that I hear from my clients is, what are your other clients doing? And these are clients who have been investing in DEI and belonging. And again, sort of like scrolling, you're never done.
Yep.
You're just building on what you're doing and constantly evolving. And maybe feeling a little bit isolated. How do I know if I'm going in the right direction? How do I know if this is good? What should be next? And so I started to bring my clients together once a week just to talk, check in with other people from across a ton of different industries, to be able to get new ideas, to bounce off ideas, to be inspired by one another, to keep it going. Because a lot of times, as many panels I've been on, I want to just sum it up like this. There's just not one right way to do this. There just isn't.
Yeah.
The only thing you can do is to keep putting your best foot forward that makes sense in your culture for where you are and what you want to achieve. And there is no way that it's going to be the same for every organization.
Yeah.
And so sometimes continue to do that. It can be tiring. In most cases, this is not the only job you have.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's scary and intimidating because, you are, I like to say, the tip of the spear. You might be doing things to advance the culture that no one else is doing, and you're trying to lead and hopefully bring other people along. Are you calibrating it right? So just being able to check in and have a supportive community of like-minded leaders, I'm finding people are getting a ton of value around that.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about it because the truth is I left corporate to start this firm because I wanted to support, we were talking about people leaders.
Yeah.
I see so many amazing people leaders in corporate who just don't get celebrated, elevated, because the culture is still oriented around technical skills and results only.
Yeah.
And so if you don't see that you're being acknowledged for something where it takes a little bit of discretionary effort, you eventually stop and you go to like the lowest common denominator. And you just be an average leader and not a great leader because no one cares.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of going back to why I started consulting, which is to support and elevate people who want to invest in people leaders, people leadership.
Yeah.
And you don't always get credit for it. And so I want to at least create a community where people feel like they're amongst people that this matters, and to inspire one another to be the best leader, which does take a little bit of effort.
Yeah. I'd imagine, I think any kind of a round table think tanks where people get to collaborate together, be a little bit more vulnerable as well. Like, I'm struggling with this. Like, I'm being criticized for this,
Exactly.
I think that's been, personally, it's a hard part of the journey for me. I'm like, okay, you running a company, you got so many dynamics you're juggling at all times, and you're trying to not keep everybody happy, because that's not my primary responsibility. Keep everyone happy.
Sort of.
But it's like, okay, I got to help the company accomplish its mission and goals while creating a culture that everybody actually enjoys working at, that sense of joy and belonging.
Yeah.
And so the happiness is really important. But I'm like, if I just went, what makes everyone happy, then we probably wouldn't get anywhere.
Correct. And you know what? You're never going to get it right.
Right.
You're never going to please everybody. That's a fact. And so I think that makes it hard too. And how many times have you been just like, oh my God, I'm never going to get it right. I give up. I quit. Whatever.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean, leadership is super hard. where do you go for support? I don't know. I mean, who can you really talk to? Right. So, I mean, that's what this Inclusive Leaders Roundtable is for. It's for the senior leaders in the organization who, you can't maybe talk about that in your organization, or frankly, you just need to be able to check in and be like, did I do this right? Could I have done something differently? And to be inspired that, okay, I'm not alone.
Right. Yeah, well done. I mean, that's cool. I mean, I think you mentioned that the Inclusive Leader Roundtable, you had this idea of it a while back.
I'm most excited about that. Yeah, I'm most excited.
And the only way people can be a part of this roundtable is if they become a client of yours.
Actually, that was where I started, but not necessarily.
Okay.
So we are opening it up starting in September. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but starting to open it up. The best way to join is to go on the wait list and then to be invited to be a guest. I want people to see it, come as a guest.
Yeah.
No strings attached, experience it to decide if this is something for you. Because the truth is, it does require contribution in order to get something out of it. Like, I want people who are going to invest in the community, not just sit with their videos off and just, get out of it without contributing to it. So I do want to be fair, give people the chance. So if you're interested, probably the best way is to go to maybe just connect with me on LinkedIn, Beth Ridley.
Okay.
DM me on LinkedIn, ask for the Inclusive Leaders Roundtable. Happy to invite you as a guest so you can experience it.
Great.
And we can see if there's a mutual fit.
Great. Well, I know a lot of our listeners are trying to figure out these journeys and wanting to grow. They're hungry leaders. They want to grow. They want to grow as an all-rounder leader, and maybe there's other people on their leadership team as well. They're like, hey, can I put this person forward?
Yeah.
So they can reach out to you there on LinkedIn. That's cool.
It helps the individual, but frankly, you're bringing back the ideas to make the work that you're investing in sustainable.
Yeah.
Right? So instead of going to a conference every once in a while, you have a monthly resource to be able to check in, to ask questions. Because I like to say, you can't Google your way out of this. Yeah. You can't chat GBT your way out of it yet. So in the meantime, you need to talk to people.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, it is so good, as always, to have you here on the show.
Jonathan, thank you. I will now retire to your basement where I'm going to live until this time next week. And I will emerge.
Back on the podcast.
My only question to you is, what time is breakfast? Because this is a B&B, right? It's a B&B/podcast studio.
Yeah. I'm actually, I wasn't sure if the microphone was picking up my stomach grumbling. I have not eaten yet today. And I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, there's no breakfast included. I'm really sorry.
What?
Yeah.
What kind of sham operation is this?
But you are welcome to come back. Well, of course, we're going to have you back on the show. But I love the insights that you share. I love the challenge. I love being able to bounce ideas. I've said this from the very first time I met you. I'm like, can I just be really raw, without judgment, without is this a safe place?
Yeah.
Because I think often we got so many questions, and it's been a really, really helpful relationship for me from that side.
Me
as
too.
well.
You always ask really good questions, and you're one of the leaders in this because it's I think it's more the consistency that you've been doing this at Titus. The consistency in small ways. I mean, it hasn't been like big, huge things that you've been doing, but small ways. Anything small done consistently is in fact the best practice. Yeah.
Well, I'm learning, and I still get, even this week, like, why did you not do this? Why did you not say this? Why did you not acknowledge this group? I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm trying. So, yeah. And I think I actually processed through some of the kind of critiques, and I was like, okay, be curious, be humble, acknowledge that I'm human and I'm not perfect and I make mistakes. And that was just not in my lens that day, and I'm really sorry. Yeah. I was traveling. I was this. I was But it just helped me. I'm not to get defensive and not to suddenly go.
You don't even have to fix it. Yeah. Thank you. So, and now you're a little bit more self-aware. That's it.
Yeah. It's been really helpful.
Next
really
time.
helpful.
Thank you.